So hey guys, that's the second part of the series. The series name is What If Naruto Fall in Love with Gamora? So let's start the series. Dead bodies littered the ship as the ship burned from enemy fire. Upon the dead was man, still alive, holding on thanks to his blood in him. Rejoice, he heard Ebony Maw chant and commence a sermon dedicated to his lord Thanos, the mad titan who wielded a golden gauntlet with 6 depressions in it, for the 6 Infinity Stones. I have to say, as Guardian, you fought well, Thanos commented, but received no reply as the wounded man could only look at his brother who stood a few feet away from Thanos before a green beast attacked Thanos. Hulk, the wounded god, thought. But it was futile. Thanos was stronger, and in the final act, another Asgardian sent the beast away, hurtling through space towards Earth. A mistake, Thanos stated as he grabbed a staff with sharp end and stabbed Heimdall in the heart. Thor screamed at seeing his friend die, and Ebony looked at him before using his powers to shut the god of thunder's mouth, silencing him. He goes over to Loki and puts his hand forwards. The stone. Loki looked at him and was about to stab the alien, but was held by his enemy's power of telekinesis. Thanos walked over to the adopted brother of Thor and looked at him. I will not ask again, as Guardian. The Tesseract, making the man look at his defeated brother before revealing the Tesseract. The Titan smirked and grabbed the cube. He crushed the cube and blew away the glass that covered his hand, leaving only the Space Stone. Putting the stone on the gauntlet, he felt the power of the stone surge in him. Clap, clap, clap. Thanos' moment of finally getting the stone was interrupted by the one person he hated the most. The one who had humiliated him in front of his whole army. The one who had also fucked both of his daughters, Nebula and Gamora. Ebony scowled and stopped Thanos' children from fighting him. Sorry to interrupt your little moment of orgasm, but can we speed this up? Naruto said, sitting on a chair while eating some popcorn. Thanos glared at the god before him. Why are you here, Uzumaki? The Titan asked, hoping he did not say that he was here for the Space Stone, or the Power Stone, or both stones. Standing up and going over to the 2 fallen brothers, everyone stepping aside, just decided to pay my dear old friends a visit, Naruto said, using the Reality Stone to turn the metal on Thor's body into dust. He turned to the Titan and motioned for him to continue. Thanos motioned for Ebony and his children to gather around him. Using the power of the Power Stone, he ignites for the ship to explode as he vanishes in a portal. Purple cracks start to appear around the 3 men as Naruto places a chip on both men's necks. Thor looks at Naruto. What are you doing here, Naruto? The god in questioning quirked an eyebrow and gave the Asgardian the same answer as Thanos, since he had asked the same question. Both brothers sighed and watched as more of the ship cracked. This is going to hurt like a bitch for you both anyway. New York City, New York? Tony looked at Bruce and at the 2 sorcerers. How much time do we have? He asked, wanting to be prepared for an incoming attack. Bruce looked at the billionaire and shook his head. No telling, he has the power and space stones. That already makes him the most powerful being in the universe. Tony, if he gets all 6. The doctor didn't want to finish the sentence. He can destroy life on a scale hitherto undreamt of. Stephen finished. Tony leans against a cauldron. Did you seriously say hitherto undreamt of? He asked the sorcerer. Are you seriously leaning on the cauldron of the cosmos? Stephen's cloak smacks Iron Man's hand. He looks at the cloak and then at the doctor. Offended, I'm going to allow that, he said before pointing to the time stone on the Sorcerer Supreme's neck. If Thanos needs all 6, then why don't we just stick this one down the garbage disposal? He suggested, making both Wong and Stephen shake their heads. No can do. We swore an oath to protect the time stone with our lives, Wong said. And I swore off dairy. But then Ben Jerry's named a flavor after me, so Tony said as Bruce quirked an eyebrow. Stark raving hazelnuts, Stephen said, having both him and Wong tried the ice cream. It's not bad, a bit chalky. A hunka-hulka burning fudge is our favorite, Wong added, making Bruce surprised that they now had things like that. Tony shook his head. Whatever. Look, point as things change. He hoped that the sorcerers both went with his idea. Dr. Stang narrowed his eyes. Our oath will not change. It may be our best chance against Thanos. It may also be his best chance against us, Tony pointed out. Stephen and Tony both glared at each other before hearing a knock. They turned to the open door to the sanctum and saw a woman with a small little girl besides her. Tony recognized her, and was surprised that she would be here. May? Tony questioned as all men turned to the billionaire. May looked at him as the little girl rushed to the billionaire and hugged him. Tony! Phew, I thought I was going into a weird place or a library. Both sorcerers looked slightly offended. It could be considered a library, yes, but a weird place? That was far from it. Ma'am, you can't be here. This Wong felt his mouth close forcefully as some tape appeared and prevented him from speaking. They looked at around and tried to find out who did it before landing on the little child that was smacking Tony on the chest. How? Bruce asked what was on all men's minds. May looked at the sorcerer and apologized. I'm sorry. She turned to her daughter and scolded the young girl Mari. How many times have I told you to not do that? This wasn't anything new to the woman since Mari did it multiple times before, but she always had to tell her to be careful. The little girl pouted and jumped off the man's chest. Sorry. Her eyes turned slightly red before the tape disappeared and let Wong open his mouth. May nodded and turned to the men. Sorry about that. Her father told her to have as much fun as she wanted, so she does what she wants. May motioned for Mari to go to her, and continued talking to the men. We came here because Naruto said it would be a great place to be protected. I didn't really get what he meant. She stopped as Tony held up a finger. He looked around and tried to find out where the noise he was hearing was coming from. Do you guys hear that? He asked and heard some commotion occurring outside the sanctum. He goes to the doors and opens one to see what was happening, and saw the chaos that was going on. The billionaire looks inside and motions for the three men to follow him. May stay here with Mari, he told the woman, making her nod, as the sorcerers, billionaire, and doctor all went outside. The little demigod looked up at her mother before running around to look around the sanctum. May sighed and followed her hyper daughter, with Naruto. The redhead knocked out both of the brothers before leaving them to float in space. And no, he wasn't being a dick. But since Thanos had killed much of both men's people, then it was their fight. Right now, he was on a distant planet with both Eric and Pietro, with some strippers. So why aren't we fighting? Quicksilver asked, worry for his sister. Naruto slapped a woman's ass and turned to look at the Silverhead. Cause if we were to go and help, then the battle would be over in a quick second, you know, due to your powers being heightened. To be able to run at the speed of light, well shit, that was already overpowered. And Eric, fuck, the guy was already triple the powerhouse that Chaka was. It was like the king of Wakanda, Steve, and Bucky were all in one person. Just relax, Speedy, you know that the seals got him covered. Eric smirked as the alien chick he was with pulled down his zipper. The best fucking team with the best team leader. Also, if we go, then maybe Wade might be there, and I told him he can't be breaking the fourth wall with me around him, which got him pissed at me. New York City, New York? Shit! Tony is knocked down by Cull Obsidian and was about to be hit again when the weapon was grabbed by Peter. The teen looks to see Cull Obsidian. Hey man, what's up, Mr. Stark? He turns to look at his mentor to see what the fuck was happening. Kid, where'd you come from? Field trip to MOMA. Peter was grabbed by Cull Obsidian and thrown aside. What is this guy's problem, Mr. Stark? Peter asked, getting back up. He's from space. He came here to steal a necklace from a wizard, Tony said, protecting himself from Cull's hammer. With Steven and Wong, Ma lifted several bricks from the ground and turns them into sharp points. He sent them towards Wong and Strange, but the two make portals and boomerang them back towards Ma. The telekinetic moves a car to protect himself, but one spike still hits his head, creating a cut. Angered, the alien uses a broken fire hydrant's water stream to knock Wong back several meters, rendering him unconscious. Shit, Steven snaps a whip of magical energy to bind Ma's hands and yanks. But Ma flies forward with the pull and pins Strange upside down against the building, using the bricks to trap the Sorcerer Supreme. Your powers are quaint, you must be popular with children, Ma mused as he tries to grab the amulet holding the time stone but jerks back when it burns his hand. The sorcerer smirked. It's a simple spell but quite unbreakable. Snarling, Ma looks directly Steven in the eyes. Then I'll take it off your corpse, he says, and pulls the wizard away from the building and throws him to the ground. Steven starts the gestures to use the Eye of Agamotto, but utility cables first pin Strange's arms, interrupting the spell and closing the eye, while another cable winds around his torso, then tightens around his throat. You'll find removing a dead man's spell troublesome, he says, close to knocking out. His opponent looks down at him and tightens the cables. You'll only wish you were dead, he says as Steven falls unconscious. With Naruto. Told you they looked at the fight that was happening in New York. All three men were now at a brothel, having grown bored of the strippers. They had fucked a few girls before they grew bored again. Sometimes being overpowered was boring, but what can someone do? Nothing but accept it. Yo Naruto, your son is being beamed up, Eric says as Naruto looks at the screen and sighs. May is so going to fucking kill him. Wait, did Steven and Wong put a TV in their sanctum? He was sure they didn't, but knowing Steven, it was possible. meaning it was possible for them to see what was happening outside. Shit! Both Proxima and Corvus looked at the hologram head of their father, both ashamed and fearful that their father would kill them because of their failure to retrieve the Mind Stone from Earth. So, both of you failed to get the stone? Thanos looked down at them while they nodded. Yes, father, she said as Thanos narrowed his eyes. It was not that he was mad that they did not get the stone, but rather that they were defeated by mere Earthlings. I see, he muttered, looking at the two and then at his gauntlet. Well, no matter, for now those stones can wait. Both husband and wife quirked an eyebrow. He looked at them. I need both of you to get Cull and Ebony as quick as possible. If one is dead, then good riddance. If they died, then they died. Once all of you are together, I want all of you to meet me at Nowhere. There is something that has to be done before all stones are in my hand, Thanos said as he looked at his gauntlet one more time. The two children nodded as they went off to find their brothers. The one thing before all the stones, with Naruto. The Uzumaki looked out of the window of the penthouse he and his crew were staying at. When you can produce riches out of your hand from mere nothing, was quite honestly awesome. But anyways, he was currently looking out of the window because of a feeling he had. His eyes slowly changed to a ruby-red color as another clone of him appeared from golden sand. I can feel the copies getting close, meaning that Thanos is coming here. The powers of the five slowly started to seep out of him and enter his clone's body. If he wants the stones, then give it to him. I don't care, just make sure he goes away soon. With that, he disappeared in a flash. Not soon after, two ships appeared in the sky. The clone looked at the two and smiled. Such a wonderful fucking day it was. With Thor. Wake. With Mantis saying that, Thor jolts right up. All 6 Guardians on the ship immediately bring out their weapons and point them right at the Asgardian. That idiotic red-haired tomato. Thor took several long breaths before turning and looking at the people that were on the ship with him. Who the hell are you guys? Where is Naruto? The Guardians looked at each other for a couple of seconds, annoying Thor in the process, but eventually stepped back as Gamora stepped forward. Why do you want to know? She asked. Thor slightly glares at her. Because that fool left me to die when the ship exploded. He leaned on the ship's wall. Gamora looks at him and then remembers back to the wreckage they encountered a while ago, sighing at her husband's doings. He wasn't there when we found you. He was gone by then, most likely to fuck more whores, she said, muttering the last parts. The God of Thunder looks at her, and the rest before sitting down. Wonderful, just wonderful. With Naruto. Humans really are strange. Naruto looked at the being next to him and chuckled. Yes, that is true, but you got to admit, they are entertaining, he said. This time the being laughed. True. Both looked at the stars/planets above them. This universe, it's really wonderful, both said at the same time. The informant for Naruto to be able to encounter such a wonderful man like him. Awesome. With Thor. Once they all calmed down, mostly Thor, they gave the Asgardians some soup and a blanket. He looks at the soup before looking up and looking at all 6 Guardians, mostly Gamora. Are you one of Naruto's lovers? He said out of nowhere, making all occupants turn to him. Peter, Rocket, and Drax look at him questioningly. Groot just didn't care. Mantis blushed a bit, and Gamora. She nodded. More like wife, she said. Now the part of Naruto being her husband was not new to anyone in the ship, aside from Thor. But they were still confused on the lover's part. Thor stood up and noticed a mark on her left shoulder, Naruto's mark. He knew a handful of Naruto's lovers back on Earth, but he didn't know if he had lovers aside from that planet until he encountered Brunhilde, the last Valkyrie. And he wasn't sure if Gamora was one of them, mostly being suspicious of her protectiveness, but decided to ask anyway. He walked closer to her, making the others get out their weapons again. Hold it there, buddy. We can't let you do something to her. Naruto would kill us if anything happened to his wife and the mother of his daughter and son, Rocket said, pointing a blaster at Thor, who stopped the moment Rocket finished. She was the mother of 2 of Naruto's children, meaning she was untouchable. So, if anything happened to her, then Naruto would be livid, and he did not want to see a livid Naruto. Sighing, he stepped back and looked back at the darkness of space through the windows. With Steve, Sam and Natasha look at both Vision and Wanda. Why the sudden disappearance? Steve asked, looking at Wanda. All 4 were on a mission a couple of days ago when she had suddenly disappeared without saying anything, and now they reunite again, but they wish the circumstances would have been different. I'm sorry, but Vision said it was an emergency, and you can see why now, Wanda said as they nodded. They looked at the damage that was done to Vision and saw that it wasn't fixing itself like it usually does. What was the weapon made out of to do this? Vision held his hand over the Mind Stone as the pain he had been feeling from these past few days doubled. Vision! They went over to him in worry, but he held his hand to stop them. The pain, it was new to him, especially from the Mind Stone, but he could deal gasp asterisk. His eyes become clouded as he sees a vision of Naruto's powers being extracted from him by a weird-looking machine. All 6 stones' powers going into someone giant with a golden glove on his right hand that had 3 infinity stones already on it. He could feel the powers of the stones. He could feel how powerful the man was going to become when he got Naruto's powers. Gasp! Once the vision ended, he looked around frantically to make sure he was still in the Quinjet, and saw everyone staring at him. We need to go now. Naruto's in trouble. Both Natasha and Wanda looked at each other and looked down a bit but nodded nonetheless like Steve and Sam. The way he said it, Vision, a highly advanced android, was afraid. With clone Naruto. The clone sat on a chair looking at the 4 in front of him. He chuckled at the reality stone that was on the gauntlet. The collector, wow, he wasn't shocked that a stone was with said being but still with the collector? Thanos looked at Naruto and flexed his gauntlet. I assume you already know why I am here. He asked the one person he hated and feared more than anything. The redhead rolled his eyes and nodded. The other 3 stones, the ones you need to complete this task of yours. The giant nodded. I know of the other 2, but alas, the soul stone hasn't appeared yet, which is weird. He knew of the stone and where it was put, but he'd let the purple giant figure it out, if he hadn't already. Thanos smirked. Both time and mind stones are on Earth, which you no doubt already know, and that's about it, he said, playing a bit confused. The smirk on Thanos grew bigger. I do already know of the 2 stones on Earth, but that isn't why I am here. The clone quirked an eyebrow. You have had an encounter with each of the 5 stones and gained some of the powers of each, to the point where you could control all 5 if you had the chance. Both Proxima and Corvus pointed their weapons at him. Something which is impossible for me, yet Thanos pointed at Naruto, which is the reason why I am here. The stones. I would need your control over the 5 to ensure my victory. A beam shot through both sides of the wall and captured the clone in the center. He looked down and at the sides. You're stealing the control. The powers he had inside him started to seep out and go to the gauntlet. Correction, I am merely borrowing the control. Naruto tried moving but failed. He was stuck, having the powers of the 5 leave him and into the gauntlet. So, this is why he was getting close. Minutes later, modifying his body, the clone made it look as if the whole draining process was too much. He was pale, sweaty, and tired. You should feel happy. Thanos looked at the gauntlet, and could feel the stones merge with him, knowing you were the reason everything is going to prosper for everyone. The beams released him, making him drop down on the floor with a hard thud. The giant looks at Naruto one more time. Let's go. A portal appears behind them and takes them away as the clone sighs. Should have fucked her before they left. Welp, one pussy less to piss Thanos off. Pop, with real Naruto. Quite honestly, the big guy really did have to get better guards. The moment Thanos appeared where his clone was at, he had appeared on the ship, and within a second, he already had his guards in trance. That was just sad, but that's beside the point. He quite honestly wasn't going to be on the ship for more than a few minutes until he had sensed on his wife's life forces within the ship. It made him curious as to why the hell 2 of his wives got captured. Oh, he had to up their stamina training. No wife of his should ever get captured because they lost in a fight, be it them versus 100 or 1,000 or even millions of soldiers. No matter what, they should never lose. If it was on purpose, then it was fine, but other than that, fuck no. Training should start. Naruto stopped his thinking as a portal opened up a few feet in front of him. He quickly sank in the shadows and waited. Out of the portal his friendly power borrower appeared along with his other 3 children. Thanos turned to look at his children and ushered them to go away. Take as many as you need, but do not fail me. They all bowed and left to set sail towards Earth and get the Mind Stone. Now he started walking to a door where one of his wives was. It's time we had a talk, daughter. The door opened up as Gamora appeared in the room. Naruto turned to where his other wife was being held captive and slowly traveled to said room. With Tony. Yeah, that's on Earth. Dipshit, the situation was not good right now, at all. What are you hassling us for? Tony asked. So you're not with Thanos? Spider-Man asked the attackers. Star-Lord shook his head quickly. Thanos. Fuck no! I'm here to kill Thanos before Naruto kills me. He started to hyperventilate before stopping and looking at them again. Wait, who are you? Spider-Man helmets. We're the Avengers, man, he said, slightly wondering why his dad would want to kill the man in front of him. Oh, you're the ones Thor told us about, Mantis said. Tony quirked an eyebrow at her. You know Thor? He asked, a little surprised. Yes, Star-Lord said, still iffy tall guy, not that good looking, needed saving. Strange looked at him. Where is he now? With Naruto. The redhead had sent a clone to help out his wife while he had gone to Vormir with Thanos and Gamora. He had followed slowly as Red Skull showed both father and daughter where the stone was, while also explaining how to get. The prize soul holds a special place among the Infinity Stones. You might say it has a certain wisdom, Red said. Tell me what it needs. Looking at the cliff to ensure that whoever possesses it understands its power, the stone demands a sacrifice, he said. Of what? Thanos asked, following to where the man's eyes were looking at. Taking a while to answer. In order to take the stone you must lose that which you love, a soul for a soul, he said gravely. Gamora looks at Red Skull and then at Thanos before laughing at the irony. I can't believe it, all my life. I dreamed of a day, a moment when you would get what you deserved. She went closer to him, and I was always so disappointed. But now you kill and torture, and you call it mercy. Stepping back a bit, the universe has judged you. You asked it for a prize, and it told you no, you failed. She might have lost it a bit, and do you want to know why? Because you love nothing, no one, she said. Thanos didn't say anything as he looked at the cliff before turning around and facing Gamora, tears in his eyes. Really? Tears? She asked. Red Skull looked at her. They're not for him. Gamora looks at the Red Skull, and as her bitter smile fades, realizes what is about to happen. She shook her head at Thanos fiercely. No, this isn't love. I ignored my destiny once. I cannot do that again, even for you. Gamora looks down for a moment, then back up to see the resolution on his face. She grabs the red jeweled dagger from his belt with lightning reflexes, triggers the blades and stabs herself in the stomach, but it's only bubbles. I'm sorry, little one. He grabs Gamora by the arm and walks towards the cliff. She struggles for a bit but couldn't get out of his grip, and oh. Naruto breathes in before breathing out. His eyes dilate a bit as he becomes invisible to the eye the moment Thanos throws her off the cliff. Using his speed and time control, he goes to her and directs some blood out of her nose. The blood slowly transformed into another Gamora as the real one disappeared into a portal the Uzumaki created. It would have been tricky or harder if he had touched her, since then he would have had to throw her, and he wasn't going to risk her beating his ass later. She was still going to kick his ass, but only less hurtful. He looked up and then back at the ground. Poof, a clone appears next to him and nods before going up to Thanos and blending himself onto the Titan's clothes. Creating a portal, he goes through it, snapping his fingers to let time resume again. Gamora falls straight down as the sky illuminates and a light pulses. It is complete. With Naruto, Gamora crashes onto a bed and looks around quickly before stopping and sighing. Her idiotic and irresistible husband saved her, which he could have done earlier but didn't. A portal opens up in front of her as Naruto appears. She looks at him and he looks at her. I hate you, she says. The redhead grins and lays next to her. Love you too, Wakanda. Sam looks up and sees the thing coming straight down towards them. Hey, Cap, we got a situation here. The vessel slams into the shield of the Golden City and explodes due to how powerful it is in defense. Bucky smirks. God, I love this place. Yeah, don't start celebrating yet, guys. We got more incoming outside the dome. With Steve and Co., both Captain and T'Challa look at each other, knowing and not knowing what they'll be facing. Natasha looks at Vision, who is about to leave the table. Vision, get your ass on the table. She looks at Wanda. Once the stone is out of him, you blow it to hell, she said as her harem sister nods. T'Challa backs away from the window and looks at Okoye while walking to the exit. Evacuate the city, engage all defense procedures. He stops and looks at Captain America and get this man a shield. Captain turns to him and nods in gratitude. With Naruto. So, my clone is inside the stone? Gamora asked Naruto as he nodded, his arm over her should and groping her right tit. Yep, she blushed at him, pinching her nipple with his sharp nails. And you didn't get it earlier because you didn't want to. She tried to look at him in the eyes, but it was hard to. I could have forcefully grabbed the stone by bending time and space, but then I'd have to fix some ripples that I created, and that's too much work. Wakanda. Natasha and the others look at the outriders that were trying to get through the wall. Definitely pissed her off. The army of those creatures continued to increase and increase each second. No matter how many died trying to go through the wall, there were many that continued to come. Some managed to get through the barrier, making the border tribe take a knee and raise their shields. The King's Guard behind them leveled their spears over their comrades' shoulders and, on T'Challa's command, begin to fire at the monsters. Bucky and Bruce also help in shooting down some that were missed. Where is Naruto when you need him? Steve and T'Challa look at each other, shaking their heads. One knew why said God wasn't here and the other knew another different reason. With Eric and Pietro, the seal on their necks pulse and a blue aura surrounds them both. They look at the people in front of them and begin their slaughter. They should have kept their mouths shut and followed orders, but no, they wanted to start a war against all three. Death seems like a good punishment to give. With Thor, he needs the axe. Where's the handle? Tree, help me find the handle. Tree shouted at Groot, making said tree creature look at Thor sadly and then at the two pieces of Stormbreaker. He scowls in determination and stands. He extends his fingers and grows them at extraordinary speed, grabbing both parts, while also crying out at the pain from the hot parts. He slams both parts together and locks them. With a mighty cry, Groot raises it above his head before chopping his own arm off at the right length, completing Stormbreaker. A crackle of lighting appears from Thor's fingers as does around Stormbreaker. With Hela, marrying and fucking in hell was not how she imagined getting married and having sex for the first time. Though it would have been a bit weird, but it was actually very, very, very fun. She also never imagined getting married to a deity that was with other women. But where was the fun in marrying only one person for the rest of her eternal life when she can now have fun with a deity who has multiple women at his side? And she means multiple women. He was a god at fucking, he gave her a child, he made her queen, and he sure as hell made her feel emotions that she hadn't felt before. Who the heck would be crazy to leave that behind just to rule Asgard? It would have been nice, but you can't always have what you want. She learnt that the hard way. That fucking idiot Surtur and him destroying Asgard. But anyways, she felt her hand twitch slightly and smirked. Her dear second little brother had gotten himself a new weapon, and from the feeling, it was the one weapon she had never gotten a chance to see or fight against. Don't disappoint me now, Thor. Round 2. Nothing like fighting against family for the throne and survival to make someone's blood pump. ASE, sweetie, can you come here really quick? One of your uncles is about to join the fight. Coming, mother. Nothing beats mother-daughter time than watching a battle that was in another planet, fighting for the fate of the universe. Wakanda. A beam of rainbow colors shot down from the sky and into the middle of the battle, killing some monsters with it before an axe came out and killed more with it. It traveled a bit and killed of some of the monsters that were on top of the Hulkbuster, Chala, Steve, and Natasha before it returned to the light as a hand grabbed it. The light cuts off and shows Thor with Groot and Rocket by his side. The Avengers look at Thor with astonishment as Proxima and Cull Obsidian looked at the God of Thunder with unease. Bruce helmets and laughs at seeing his friend join the fight. You guys are so screwed now. Thor looks at the two children of Thanos and glares at them before directing his attention at the Outriders. Charging forward with his new friends and new weapon, he begins to channel his powers. Bring me Thanos. Lightning gathered and surrounded him as he launched himself into the air, his powers channeling onto Stormbreaker, before shooting straight down in the middle of a horde of Outriders, killing off many with the blast and creating a crater where they stood. Proxima and Cull looked and snarled at the outcome of the Asgardian joining. The Asgardian and Earthlings just didn't know when to give up, but fine. If they want to add a power boost with Thor coming into the battlefield, then they might as well do the same. Proxima clicked on a button on her spear as Cull did the same. Aside from getting good dick from her former lover and messing her up to the point where her husband no longer satisfied her, she also had access to some weapons and items in his vault. Thus, her spear and her brother's hammer upgrades. A spear that could kill thousands and a hammer that could create craters. Well shit. She just hopped that female Earthling with the blonde hair didn't cross her path. That mark on her neck, her former lover's mark, was already a major power boost, bigger than the Asgardian's new weapon. Then again, she could beat her to a bloody pulp and have her summon Naruto just to see her in that state. Yeah. Natasha felt someone looking straight at her and turned to see who it was. She saw the one who faced against her before, when they were rescuing Vision and Wanda, looking at her with hate and glee. Grabbing her batons, she clicked on a small button on the bottom. Red fire with white lightning surrounded the two weapons as she pointed one towards Proxima. She didn't know why, probably the smugness, hate, and glee on Proxima's face, but she knew one thing. You're mine, bitch. He looked at the trees around the planet and shook his head in amusement. Every single time in every single universe/dimension. They have these idiots who think that they are the most powerful beings in the universe just because they could destroy a planet with a single shot of their powers, every single time. And guess what? Every single one of those times, those beings get killed by him due to their own arrogance. It was fun, yes, but they are just really annoying to deal with. Thus, he was here now at this current moment. So, tell me again, what was it that you were saying? Naruto looked down at his foot and smirked at the struggling primordial ego. Its head was right at the bottom of the redhead's foot, while its arms were trying to get his leg off, trying to use all its strength but to no avail. Get off, MGH. Ego was cut off when Naruto quickly kicked the being in its throat, making it choke a bit. He sighed and shook his head. This was just supposed to be a small visiting trip since he had sensed a source of power in the whole thing. Then he met this primordial and next thing he knew, Naruto was kicking this thing's ass. It was just sad, honestly, the whole fight, if you would call it that, took just 30 seconds, can never find a good fight. You know what? Naruto backed up a little. I don't care anymore, he said, shaking his head, the smirk slowly turning into a disappointed frown. Just like the others who are like it, he knew that getting an apology from it would take at least 100 more times of beating it senseless, and almost close to death before he got it. No point in staying here and waiting. Though it might be dumb in other people's opinions to just let their enemy go to learn and grow stronger, Naruto also knew that ego was at full power when it fought. No amount of extra training would make it grow stronger. Might it learn from this fight and get smarter? A little, but it wouldn't even help it in future fights. Naruto was just playing with it through the whole fight and will continue to do so. He knew it, ego knew it. No point in training and learning when it wouldn't do shit in the end. The outcome will always be the same every time. Ego will always be an ant fighting against real primordial entity. Sigh, he turned his back towards the primordial and started to walk away slowly. Might as well go back to Earth and see how these wizards have progressed with their magic. He stopped in his tracks when he felt the Celestials create life. Not just a pet or something small where it would not disrupt the flow of life. No, he felt them create things that were bioengineered. Once someone creates a new life, they create a new soul, something that would always be noticed. Let's just see how perfect these beings are, he chuckled as he closed his eyes and encased himself in dark matter. Never mind the wizards, he had to see these beings, the fun that will come from watching them. They will learn magic and about Dormammu one way or another by themselves. Years later, Naruto looked at both sides and shook his head again. The deviants thought that the celestial that created them had given them Earth to do as they pleased. This was theirs and the Eternals were just intruding, the other celestials betraying the agreement they had among them. The Eternals, on the other hand, were just here because the Celestials had sent them. One side was the good side, and the other was the bad side, each side viewing the other side as the other. Was he here to stop them? This fighting that was happening among these two groups and the civil war brewing amongst the Eternals? Answer: no. Why would he? They had to figure out all of this on themselves. Sure, he had lovers amongst them, but he wasn't going to be this knight in shining armor for them. Too boring. For now, though he'll see how it all turns out, the Masters aka the Wizards had started building the 3 sanctuaries to fight against Dormammu and protect Earth. It took them a couple of 100 years, but they finally managed to become decent wizards. Not masters per se, just enough to fight an entity like Dormammu. It was funny though when they had told him the way the sanctuaries were going to be built, and how they were going to look. On the outside it may look different, but on the inside, it was another matter. PFTT, he could have done that with one single seal. But nonetheless, they were making progress. He quirked an eyebrow. Vibranium. Well, more like a piece of it was expanding, and it had grown a flower? Interesting. He had expected the tribes to keep on fighting for the land for a while more, but it seemed that Bast had decided to interfere and create a champion. Well, guess he had to set a goddess straight. All that happened on Earth had to go through him. Unless he did not care and let it happen because it would be fun. Nothing escapes him. Anyways though, the herb/flower had grown, and she had given her champion visions to go and get it to finally end the conflict happening between all 5 tribes. It was powerful enough. Add to it, vibranium was very, very powerful, and if they kept on fighting for it, it would just be left on the ground until they had finally managed to work together. Fuck, seemed like he now had to pay visit to these 5 tribes too. He wanted to watch these 2 species keep on fighting. The sparks and yells. But he was curious and had a duty. Naruto whirled his finger, as his shadow came up from behind him, grabbed him and sucked him down into the endless Wakanda. He came up from the ground but quickly camouflaged himself to not be noticed by any tribe. It would be alarming for anyone to see someone coming up from the ground like the dead. Doubt he would even get out a word before they shot him with spears and arrows. Now, Bast, let's see who this champion of yours is, he said as he went towards where the power from the herb was being emitted. A couple of minutes later, and he arrived. Same time as the champion. Naruto chuckled as he saw the champion. She chose well, it seemed, a shaman and a strong warrior from what he saw. The Uzumaki stayed back and watched as everything ensued. The crushing, to the drinking, to the process of the power becoming one with him. The shaman/young warrior slowly stood up and flexed his hand, his legs, everything. It was new to him, to feel that powerful that quick. Sadly though, he would have to do that later. Naruto coughed into his hand and slowly walked towards him, undoing his camouflage. The shaman turned towards him in alarm and quickly went into combat position, but was shocked and taken back when the stranger had then appeared before him. The redhead's eyes dilated for a second and then went back to normal the next. He wasn't going to speak English to someone who didn't. He needed a little bit of information. Sayavuyasana nachincho wako and shachili, kadwan dina shishini nothixakatsi wako, kwe okuba onanank saki. Congratulations on your change champion. But I have business with your goddess. And if you don't mind, Naruto hit all the pressure points on the shaman's body, making him fall down to the ground limp. He was still awake and panicking but could not move anything. Snap! He snapped his fingers, casting a genjutsu over the area in case anybody came. Fumla, oku akuyi kukukathaza, kadwa isathik sakatsi sako senza into gaphandle quemvium. Relax, this will not bother you, but your goddess did something without my permission, he said as he tapped the warrior's forehead and made him fall unconscious. Inside the shaman, the warrior woke up and looked around in frantic. Whoever that man was, he was something, not something else but something. Behind him, he heard a chuckle. If it were anybody else they would have most likely killed you just for thinking that, Bishenga, Naruto said, walking right up next to said warrior. The shaman went rigid seeing that something come next to him. If you are wondering how we can now speak the same language, we are in this universe's God realm. If you would, languages in the realm of gods didn't exist. It was just one, thus it was easy to understand one another. No barriers, no questions. Bishenga nodded slowly but did not look at the redhead. I see, he quietly said, trying not to ask many questions in case it would be rude before asking him one thing that he had said before coming into this realm. You said the goddess Bast had done something you did not give her permission to do. If I may ask, what exactly did she do? He was her champion. She gave him the powers to stop all the fighting amongst the tribes, and he wasn't going to just let anybody or anything talk down on her, even if it did sound like he was in a higher position than Bast. Naruto looked at him, and then turned back to look at the field straight ahead of them. Follow me, you'll get your answers. Bishenga didn't like the answer, but he nonetheless followed a little behind, seeing as how the person/thing in front of him was still unknown to him. Never just follow blindly. Always stay back in case it was a trap. A couple of minutes later and both men arrived in front of a cave. Naruto turned his head to look back at Bishenga. You've only seen a blurry image of Bast in your dreams due to her not wanting to show any of her forms to life, she says. Is beneath her. Bishenga slightly agreed. He was not going to go against the god's beliefs. They were technically beneath her. Today though, is your lucky day. You'll be the first ever human to see her in her animal form, Naruto said, walking into the cave with the young shaman walking behind him, slightly closer in anticipation to see his goddess. Taking a few steps inside the cave, and torches that were invisible from the outside lit up. They walked a couple more seconds inside until they reached two golden doors, typical of gods, always flashy. Is that you, Sekhmet? That is rare. You usually don't visit unless there is something important to talk about amongst us, they heard from the other side of the doors. Naruto smiled and pressed his hand on the golden doors. Bishenga looked at him and then the doors before noticing they started to melt down onto the floor. Sorry to disappoint, but Sekhmet isn't the one here today. Instead you got me. And let's just say that I am a little pissed on how some pussy decided to do whatever the hell she wanted in my world, the Uzumaki said, walking past the melted doors with Bishenga behind him. Inside, Bast in her panther form stood up from the floor in a quick second and slowly backed away to stay away from him, while also looking behind him at the only escape there was. Now Naruto smacked his foot on the floor, making seals spread all over the room. The doors might be melted, but it doesn't mean the seals will let her leave. She was stuck, she knew it. She wasn't going to get out of this one. Not even her father or even both pantheons would be able to stop the being in front of her. Bast had played with the wrong entity. According to all pantheons, all entities, and gods, the number one rule when it comes to me, no matter if it is just a glimpse, the moment I put a foot in your home or your pantheon's territory, said gods are supposed to greet me. Now Bishenga knew this was a higher god. The way Bast had reacted, was scared to meet the god right next to him in the eyes, and was looking for a way out. She had done something the god did not take kindly to. So why is it you or anyone in this pantheon did not greet me and is still not bowing? Bast, Naruto said with one of his eyes turning red with a slitted pupil in the middle. Bast felt a force make her whole body heavy and make her crash down onto the floor. Her hands and knees slowly started to go into kneeling position until she was kneeling in front of Naruto and her champion, who was staring at the scene in shock and a bit of horror seeing his goddess kneel. A god kneel amongst another. Add to it, he did not know who this god was yet besides the fact that they were higher than gods. It terrified and shocked him. Better, Naruto said, looking at her in said position. She didn't respond and kept looking down on the ground to avoid contact with him. Don't worry. Your siblings and the rest of the family will face the same treatment that you are receiving. It is both Pantheon's punishment. A wooden chair came up from the ground beneath him. He sat on it and smirked down at her, which is a shame since that was a rule set on you guys. But I don't enforce it since I don't really care, just as long as you all know you will never be higher than me. He rested his head on his arm. But it seems you think the opposite, Bast. You seem to think that you are above and do whatever you fucking want without my permission. My permission? The one being's permission who you need permission to do anything, he said. I didn't mean to, Lord Uzumaki. But those Bast tried to say out but got interrupted by said Lord. It was never about the tribes for you, Bast. I know you gods. I know you don't care about humans, they are below you. According to you gods, he rolled his eyes for you. It was just about having a champion. The only times you gods give a single care about said humans, you want to show your champion is the best out of all of those out there from the other gods. Naruto looked at Bishenga, telling him right there his answer. She had not asked him permission to create a champion to represent her. He was just created because she wanted to show to all the other gods that her champion was better than any other god. Answer in his question, she did a selfish stupid move going against the god's back. So now leaves the question, what am I to do? Bast and Bishenga both paled and went rigid. I can't get rid of your champion. He is now in the game board that made the human feel better, but you need to be punished. Bast him. Get rid of your powers? No, kill you? No, take away your home? No, all of the options made said goddess feel nervous and scared at the choices he can make to punish her. Oh. He stood up as a dark goop seeped from his hand and fell onto the floor, forming a pool of blackness. Segment. Along with the other gods failed to stop you from following one rule, a simple rule. And to me it seems like she can't rule this pantheon as well as I thought she would. Guess, we just have to replace her. The pool started to rise, making Bishenga back up a little, and started to form the silhouette of tall muscular male. Naruto turned to look at his shadow and nodded. Bring Sekhmet. If she resists, cut off all her limbs until she can't fight anymore, he said. The shadow went out the door and into the realm to find said goddess. The redhead turned to look at the silhouette, and also gave it a nod with the dark figure doing the same motion. Lord Yuzi. Bast tried to get something out to appeal, to save her sister in all but blood, but he forced her to stay quiet. She was going to watch as Sekhmet died in front of her, and she, Bast, was going to be the one responsible, just for one thing, one stupid thing. Fuck, my lord, the dark figure returned with said goddess right next to him in a matter of seconds. She didn't have time to react when he had appeared behind her and sucked her into the void dimension, only to pop up within Bast's chambers. How dar a spear of gold and silver shot into her abdomen faster than anyone had realized. Sekhmet. Naruto called out to her, as she slowly turned to him, the spear in her with golden blood slowly coming out, the moment she looked at him. Her eyes widened. I give each ruler just one chance to rule their pantheon, right, Sekhmet? But it seems you can't do that. It isn't the easiest thing to do when you have gods all over and enemies amongst each other, but I would expect the leader of each pantheon to enforce the rules and set them right so that they won't have to face their ends by my hands. A chain shot up from the ground and wrapped around Bast's neck. Yet you, Sekhmet, could not do that with your fellow sister here. The goddess looked at her sister from the corner of her eyes. She broke the one stupid rule you gods have amongst each other, and also did the one thing that I would have assumed was already forbidden to do and known to all. He grabbed the spear. You gods are in my domain. I am the one who says yes or no. No one decides to do whatever they want like they are above me. I am the one who is above all you gods. I am letting you stay here. I am letting you have sections. I am letting you all live. He turned the spear to hurt the female more. You let your sister create a champion without my permission. Let her do whatever she wanted because both of you are so close that you trusted her and didn't think she would betray that. Yet she did, looking at her straight in the eyes as said goddess felt her powers stop, not leave but stop. Luckily for her, her life will be spared since she put her champion in the game. Sadly though, you on the other hand, Sekhmet, will not have that opportunity. The black figure approached her and stood behind her. You did not rule properly, Sekhmet. You have failed as a ruler to all the gods in this pantheon and failed as a god. Naruto pulled out the spear as the dark figure began to envelop her. Therefore, Sekhmet, warrior goddess and goddess of healing, daughter of Ra and Hathor, you are sentenced to death due to your assistance in helping the goddess Bast in the creation of a champion, an act that is forbidden to do unless given permission from me. Your titles, powers, everything will be transferred to a new host who will rule with an iron fist and better than you did as a ruler. All who defy or try to challenge me in this decision will face death. The figure enveloped everything but her head. He looked at her in the eyes as he said one final thing. Like I said before, Sekhmet, your trust in your sister was the one that caused your downfall and the one that cost your death. You will be known as a failure who could not even control one god and will be known as an example to the other gods should they try this again. I am above you all. Goodbye, Sekhmet. With that said, the dark figure enveloped Sekhmet. It stayed in the outline of Sekhmet, and remained in said outline for a couple of seconds before changing its form. It didn't stop until a new body was standing before all of them, having the same body as Sekhmet, but a human face with a few distinct animal features on it. She stood at a height higher than what gods would normally be, which was 8 feet. She stood at 10 feet in height, Naruto wanting her to show that she was above the pantheon's gods in both power and height. Bast looked at the feet of the new god and tried to remove the chains but couldn't. Her sister was dead and now known as a failure of a god because of her, this new god taking her place. She hated this. She hated these chains. She wanted to fight back even if it meant death in order to set it right, everything right, but she couldn't. Naruto turned his attention towards her and went towards her, slowly crouching to be in the same height. He chuckled and shook his head. The gods of all the pantheons will know what happened today, and you, Bast, will be there to tell everyone who asks what happened. And don't think you're off the hook yet. I know you. He put his finger on her neck, a small spiral tattoo/seal appearing and spreading all around her neck before vanishing into her skin. I say come, you come. I say kneel. You place your head on the ground. I say lick. You do it like your life depends on it. I say kill a god. You kill them, even if they are family. She nodded by force and balled her fist. Good. Naruto smirked as Bashenga also kneeled when said god turned towards him. Relax, Bashenga. You're just a pawn. You're not at fault here, so relax. I won't hurt the tribes when you finally control them or take away your powers, so like I said, relax. He did not relax. He was still kneeling, which Naruto didn't really hold it against him. He just killed one of his pantheon's gods. Let's go back to the real world. Wouldn't want the tribes to start looking for you. The champion nodded and followed Naruto as he undid the seal and slowly started to walk out of the cave. Remember, Bast, I am always watching.